Hello, everybody, and we're back. Actually, I am back from a long trip to South America, but we're here again, the whole crew together, talking about USL Championship here at the Striker Tejas, your USL Championship podcast for the Striker Texas. Um, Very happy to be back with everybody, guys. Got some good family time back in Brazil. Got to see a couple of games. Got to watch the Champions League semifinals with my dad, which was fun on TV, of course. But back here on real live of USL Championship, Jonathan, big week for San Antonio. How are you doing?
Doing all right, yeah. Big week for SAFC. 3 matches in 8 days, all on the road. Did not start on the best of terms. And uh, I just got back today from Phoenix a few days ago, so I'll be right back out on the road in a few days
I was gonna
going to
say gonna be
Houston.
on the road going to Houston. We're gonna talk a little bit about that, but just bring it up to everybody. We're gonna do a pre-game and post-game show, a video live from PNC Stadium in Houston with Jonathan Chack covering, our lovely San Antonio FC and Victor Arizer taking a hit on Houston Dynamo for Open Cup. It's going to be an amazing game. It's always fun to play up there in Houston. Let's go down to the border. RGV, my friend, covering the totals. How are you, brother?
Doing
Oh, you're
really well.
muted. You're muted, Edson. You're muted.
Now it was my turn this time. It happens to every one of us. No, I'm doing pretty well, Roberto. Glad to have you back to talk about the USL. And honestly, it's just been a frustrating week for RGVFC. And we'll talk. I'll talk about more in detail about what happened in their game against Colorado Springs Switchbacks. Obviously, given the results, there's negatives, but there's also positives. But overall, there's just a lot more doubts than positives from this team still this deep into the season.
All right. We'll talk about the games, the game from last week, and we'll talk also about the games this coming week. But before we talk about those specific games, let's give a warm welcome to our friend Joe Rodriguez from El Paso, and then we can already start hitting off with you. Well, the week that we've been waiting for, 9 points in 3 games, Joe. How are the airs out there in El Paso?
No, everything's going good. Like you mentioned it, El Paso Locomotive FC was able to pull off their own little trifecta this week, winning on all 3 games in 7 days, 9 points. But I think also just as notable, I think, was the fact that they in that process of those 3 matches, Roberto, Edson, and Jonathan, they were able to go ahead and score 10 goals in favor while only conceding 2 for a team that allowed goals in the double digits for the first half dozen games of the season. That's quite an accomplishment in itself. Saturday night, most recently, they defeated the LA Galaxy 2 by the score of 4-0, their second clean sheet of the season. And it was a clean sheet where they actually, their other clean sheet was against Monterey Bay, but they played the entire second half with a man up. But this was this past Friday night, or this past Saturday night, this past weekend. There was 11 on 11 in a match once again that El Paso Locomotive FC dominated. Luis Lucho Solanak continues to score goals for this team, as does Diego Luna. Basically, just this team's firing on all cylinders right now, and it's a good way to start. The second quarter of what is this 2022 season.
And talking about that, and I think we have said this so many times, and I think that's what one of the things that makes USL Championship so special, right? Could we believe if somebody told us, 2 weeks ago, or let's not go that. Let's say when I left, if somebody would say when I came back from Brazil 2 weeks later that El Paso would be in playoff position and RGV would be down on the table, I would say no, it's not going to happen, right? And it's so interesting how no 2 or 3 wins can change the whole table upside down.
Yeah, no, definitely that's the case here. Obviously, you mentioned it. Right now, currently, El Paso Locomotive FC finds itself in seventh place in the Western Conference right now. 4 wins, one draw, 5 losses, good enough for 13 points on the season. 7 point goal differential in their favor, though. So that's also looking good. And I think from now on, I think this team, one of the biggest things that I asked in the post-match press conference this weekend after the victory against Los Dos was, with this kind of week where they win a perfect 3 for 3, 9 points, does this officially mark that the opening to the season or the beginning of the season is something that's just in the past now and it's forgotten and it's just all about looking forward from here? And I think the consensus was yeah. And the bigger theme I think that everybody mentioned over the course of this week, over those 3 games, was time. The factor of time. You needed time to be able to just get used to a new head coach, a new system. They took their time. They looked very, very shaky in the process, but they learned, and I think now you're starting to see the fruits of their labor with these 3 wins. And obviously, it's going to be a tough test this coming week. Another tough trip to the East Coast to face Pittsburgh, which we'll talk about here a little bit later.
All right. I think it's interesting to see. We should remind ourselves of the new coach, the new structure, everything that El Paso is going through. And again, to get to this point of the season after such a challenging start, or just not say a terrible start, it's. I think it's good for us, good for Texas, good for El Paso, and good for that front office that I can never hide the admiration that I have for that club out there in the west of Texas. Um, Edson, interesting game in Colorado at Colorado Springs. I I can ask. We could ask Jonathan about that. On TV, that stadium is looking so nice. I know you didn't like where they put you, Jonathan, when you went to cover the game there. They put you on the sun, but uh, it looks like a very nice stadium, doesn't it?
It definitely is a really nice stadium. I think, and the atmosphere, it really like transmits itself through the broadcast as well. It's one, I guess, it's one of those stadiums that I would love to go and visit one day, hopefully. Um, and it was all setting himself set itself up for a fireworks display, not only out on the in the sky, but also inside the pitch. With It's interesting because the Toros, for a long time, they were able to hold Haji Berry, Elvis Amo, and Galena. They were able to hold them with very little opportunities to score. I think they only had one clear opportunity right at the beginning of the game. Then comes the 43rd minute, a mistake, by Juan David Cabezas, trying to pretty much thread the ball between, the high press of Colorado Springs. And Elvis Samo eventually gets, the rebound and shoots it first time towards the goal with Tyler Derrick. And overall, all 3 goals by Colorado Springs Switchback were really, really bad mistakes by the defense and or Tyler Derrick. In the second goal, short corner that Zachary Zandy, tries to cross towards Elvis Amo. Elvis can't get to it, but Tyler Derrick, like he was expecting Amo to deflect it, and he kind of caught himself off guard, and it just snuck inside the goal. The third goal, another corner kick by Colorado Springs Switchbacks, gets cleared out, but Juan Pablo Torres does not defend against the attacker correctly, and pretty much left that flank wide open for him to go run towards the goal line. He gets the driven cross right in front of the goal, and Luka Malisevich unfortunately deflects the ball into the
So
net.
so the team it starts with a 3-0. There are 3 goals down. Game is over, and not necessarily.
No. So the interesting aspect of it is that right after Colorado is already up 3-0, Wilmer Cabrera decides to bring in uh, Isidro Martinez. Just a couple, like 2 minutes later, he brings in Isidro Martinez for Juan Pablo Torres. That changed everything for RGVFC. RGVFC started looked nimbler out on the attack. They were able to cause a penalty when they called a handball on Carlton Belmar. Emilio Icaza, who had never, I know they were mentioning in the broadcast, had never kicked a penalty kick, hit that ball inside the post. But then the play ended up with a corner kick that that Isidro Martinez accurately crosses it to Frank Nadarcy, who hits it into the net. 2 minutes later, 3-2, another corner kick by Isidro Martinez. This time it's Wehab Akwe that hits the ball into the goal. And it seemed like RGVFC from out of nowhere was going to probably be able to equalize the game, especially after in the 81st minute, Tristan Hodge was actually red carded after a blatant denial of goal scoring opportunity on Frank Lopez. However, the same thing that has plagued the Toros so far is that in the run of play, it's very difficult for RGVFC to get some good shots on goal. I think in total, the Toros had 16 shots, only 4 of them were on target. So those woes just continue.
It's an old problem for RGV from last year. We heard you saying this many times. You've been, and we have been, critical of Wilmer many times in this podcast, right? Would you give him some credit? It looks like by what you said that his changes on the second half made the team more aggressive, and we could give him the credit of almost taking the point in Colorado.
I'm actually thinking the other way around. I'm actually been extra critical of Wilmer for wasting for a half with a squad with players that just aren't being, they just aren't making a difference. And you end up having to bring in Chelo, who's usually a starter. You end up also having to bring in Frank Lopez because he was also on the bench. Frank Lopez was also on the bench. And I understand, I said on Twitter, I understand Frank Lopez because he's played all of these games since the beginning of the season. You want to give him some rest because if you keep on playing him and he gets hurt.
He's going to get hurt. Then
exactly. So that one I understood, but not Isidro Martinez, right? And it showed. So.
All right. So, but last but not least, at least for those 30 minutes, the team looked good. Is that you said on your introduction that they were good and bad? The bad, it's obvious. Is the good how the team looked on those 20-30 minutes?
It showed the potential that when they are actually focused, they can go up against any team in the USL Championship. But defensively, the problem is they're always going against the current because of all these defensive mistakes where they just shoot themselves in the foot. Yeah. And that's been the problem.
So San Antonio went to Arizona. Jonathan took that trip with his family also. I guess. I never told me he was with your family, but I know your mom and dad never miss a game if they can. So I would guess you guys went together. But also nice, good stadium, good environment. Tell us a little bit about Arizona.
Yeah, not a bad stadium. It's a different Phoenix Rising soccer complex from what it was a couple years ago. They moved locations, but it's still a pop-up stadium. Still has the same kind of feel. It's a little different setup as far as like where you're sitting, and the atmosphere was maybe a little. I even saw some SAFC fans when I tweeted out pictures from the stadium, kind of poking fun at the low attendance because. At least on the opposite side, it was maybe a little sparse. I don't know the full details, but I heard something about there being like a massive water spill on a nearby highway, or there was something going on that apparently was just really
blocking people, making
it difficult to get there. And as far as the atmosphere, like weather-wise, Phoenix obviously has this reputation for being hot, but not quite there yet. I think the temperatures were about the same as they were in San Antonio and throughout Texas, but not as much humidity, so not really that bad.
And the game itself, 3-0.
Mhm.
What happened? Was the team was Marcina saving the team for this coming Wednesday? You think?
No, not at all. I'm going to actually start my analysis of this by reading a tweet, not from this past Saturday, but the Saturday before, when SAFC was beating Monterey Bay. And at the time I tweeted this, 9:14 p.m., it was 4-0. I know it's weird to find a negative for SAFC tonight, but the finishing remains subpar. The scoreline could easily be doubled. Against more stingy opponents, basically every other team you will play, you have to bury every chance you get. And that was the problem for SAFC on Saturday. They
Again, same thing.
they were just as good as Phoenix, I would say, maybe better in just about every way except for the finishing. That scoreline really flattered Phoenix in a sense, but it also just indicated how poor SAFC was at finishing a number of great chances. And it wasn't even just things that they were creating themselves. Phoenix were making mistakes at the back multiple times, giving the ball away to SAFC, and they would create chances and they would go unpunished. And you saw more of those in the first kind of half hour, and SAFC wasn't punishing them. And it's like, this was your chance. This was your chance to get a goal or two ahead. And then Phoenix, as we know, is always a dangerous team, always a talented team, especially at home. And Greg Hurst got a couple goals in the first half. The second one, probably going to win goal of the week, if we're being honest, if you haven't seen it yet. And it just kind of, it was sad because SAFC was the better team up until then, concedes the goals, and it just takes so much out of them. And they kept fighting the good fight until the final moments. Conceded a third goal right at the end. This is obviously 2 matches, 2 losses to Phoenix this year, and both times they conceded a late goal, and it should have been so much better for SAFC.
Yeah, let's take a little bit of the good out of the bad. Is that I think the fact that San Antonio created some fat in the beginning of the tournament this year allows them to, even coming out of a big loss like that, still be sitting on second place in the Western Conference. We got El Paso, like we discussed a while ago, sitting on seventh with 10 games, a game more than San Antonio, and if I'm doing the math here, 8 points behind San Antonio. And then, you got RGV sitting in 11th with a game less, guys, 9 games, but only, if I'm not mistaken, again, 2 points outside playoff position. So it's still, everybody's still pretty much alive, especially with what we talked about El Paso in the beginning. If you win 2 or 3 games, you jump up and you sit in a good position. So it really, I think, overall, 1/4 into the championship, I think overall we're looking good. I think we can create some good expectations moving forward. I think all of the teams have shown good and bad moments. Of course, San Antonio more good moments than bad. I think if it was not because of the finishing that, you know, Jonathan has been very critical week after week. If it was not because of that, we could be even saying here that no, San Antonio would be having a historic run in the beginning of this tournament.
So I have a quick question. I know none of us here are coaches, or none of us here have experience coaching, especially professional soccer. But we know that we talk about RGVC having the same issue as well as San Antonio. But what can Wilmer Cabrera and Alan Marcina do to improve the situation, or it's just a fact of that they're just not good enough players in both of the squads?
I don't think saying that they're not good enough in the squad. You got some, especially, and I'll talk about a little bit about San Antonio a little bit more because I know about this squad a little bit better than the other teams in some ways. But to say that Patino, for example, is not a good forward, it's I said this last year. I'm a big fan of Patino. I thought he could be doing better than many of the center forwards in MLS, and to say that that's the problem, I don't know. I think there's a lot about confidence also that takes on over time. Say, Jonathan.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Patino because he's been injured for most of the season so far for SAFC. Came back a couple weeks ago, I believe. First appearance was against El Paso,
Yeah, we were
but
there at the stadium. Yes.
yeah, got re-injured, and I actually found myself saying like, someone, a poacher like Patino, someone as clinical as he is what SAFC was crying out for on Saturday. They just needed somebody to be in the right place at the right time to finish these chances. And to answer Edson's question, what SAFC needs to do, and I saw some SAFC fans saying this on Twitter, finishing drills. Like, this is a
Yeah, well,
recurring problem.
guys,
It was a
guys,
problem last year.
they do finishing drills.
Could have
Of
fooled me.
course. Well, yeah, no, I had never been in a San Antonio training session or an RGV training session for its sakes, but I know the game and I know the coaches and I know the teams. That's one of the biggest things that they do every day is finishing. But finishing on training, there's a saying in Brazil that we say training is training and games are games. It's not the same thing, right? So I go back to saying if we think that they have good forwards, which they do, most of the teams here in Texas do because they shown this at some moment or not is a matter of confidence and making it happen. And again, guys, playing ESL Championship is a hard tournament to play. It's a lot of travel, a lot of low end traveling, right? It's not like MLS today that they're traveling on chartered flights back and forth and. You go to USL Championship, you go to Monterrey, for example. I'm not exactly know how it's going to be the flight this week for RGV, but I bet it's gonna take them at least 16 hours to get from home to the hotel on the other hand, and then the next day you play, and then the next day you're flying 16 hours back home. It's tough. It's not simple, and that hurts, and that's why I thought that maybe Marcina had saved a little bit of his team this past weekend, thinking about Open Cup. Which let's talk about Open Cup now biggest game of the season until we get to playoffs, at least, right? For San Antonio FC, beating an MLS team back to back, or beating two MLS teams back to back in a playoff kind of tournament, which is Open Cup, would be more than historic for San Antonio if they're able to pull this off on Wednesday in Houston.
Yeah, I don't know if I would, even if SAFC wins on Wednesday, I still think with all the history with Austin, I think looking back, that might be considered the bigger win. But then obviously the next round, you're in the round of 16 with probably mostly, if not entirely, MLS
MLS
teams.
teams.
Then you might have the biggest match of the season. But you can't get ahead of yourself. SAFC is obviously coming off a kind of a demoralizing win. They might be kind of questioning themselves mentally after the inability to finish on Saturday.
Would they, Jonathan? Because I think that even on the mindset of the players when they're playing Phoenix in a away game, knowing that they're playing Houston on Wednesday, maybe they are taking their feet out of our ball here or there. They're not fully committed to
And
the game.
and not only and not
It's
only that,
normal, guys.
and not only that, I think San Antonio has everything to win and nothing to lose in this upcoming
That's
game
it.
against the
It
Houston
helps.
Dynamo.
That helps. I think I agree with you. The Austin game, there was a pressure on San Antonio playing at home, playing against Austin with the whole history of the two cities and everything that went with MLS. I'm with you, Edson. It was an important game for 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 San Antonio playing against Austin, and they delivered. They truly delivered, right? I think Austin people are still struggling with that loss to this point, and if they end up beating Houston, guys, I'm telling you, this is big. This is a dream. You all know I've been the GM for a USL Championship team, and there was nothing more that we wanted than win a Open Cup.
Yeah.
To beat a couple of MLS teams on the way, and I know for a fact that Tim Holt, Bobby Paris, Alan Marcina, and the whole team is really looking forward for this game on Wednesday.
Now the biggest question is going to be with the fact that the Houston Dynamo aren't doing so well right now in MLS. would it be the time now that Pablo Nagamura is going to use his starters for U.S. Open Cup at least to try to salvage something, or
I doubt it. I don't think the MLS teams care about Open Cup the way that the USL Championship cares. They start caring when they are in the quarterfinals. That's when that becomes
If you
important for
make
MLS.
it, if you squeeze your way into that part of the tournament, then the attention shifts.
Yeah,
Definitely, but still, make no mistake about it. It's like you and Edson said, Roberto. Edson, all the pressure in the world is with Houston still,
yeah,
regardless on this game.
yeah, or maybe there's nobody under pressure that much on this game, right? Anything can go. Everybody, it's. I believe, if I would guess, I think Nagamura is going to come with mixed starting lineup. They signed Beto Avila last week. I have no doubts that the reason that they signed Beto from Houston too is to put him in the squad this week also, and even if he's on the bench. But again, I think there's not much pressure on any sides, and I think that's going to make it a very interesting game to watch. And I do think that San Antonio wants this game more than Houston, and we'll see that. We're going to talk a lot about that pre-game, post-game. Myself, Jonathan, and Victor Ariza are going to be at the stadium, like I said before, doing our live pre-game live shows, post-game live shows. If there's a derby or Texas derby, we are there, and nobody does a better coverage of Texas soccer than the Striker Texas, right? So we're going to be there giving all the best. It's Wednesday kickoff, if I'm not mistaken, 7:30. We're doing our show at 6:30, our pregame show at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. That's just for you, Joe. I know you like to be different than us, so you have a different time zone there. But 6:30 p.m. we start that show. Let's talk about the games this weekend very quickly. We already got 20 something minutes here on our clock, and we don't want Maya upset with us tomorrow, complaining that we went too long with our podcast, right? Um, so San Antonio, after playing on Wednesday, flies to Florida to play Miami. Um, should we even talk about this game before the game on Wednesday, or let's leave to talk about this game on our post-game show on Wednesday night, Jonathan?
I think it's worth it to talk about it now in case some people don't see those pre and post game discussions. It's going to be, regardless of how Wednesday goes, it's going to be tough for SAFC because if I'm not mistaken, Miami FC did not advance to this round of the Open Cup, so they will have had at least a week to prepare for this match. And SAFC, of course, not only playing 3 times in 8 days, but playing away to Phoenix. So you've got to travel out there, and then travel back. Then you've got to go to Houston, then come back, and then go to Miami. So obviously, that's a lot of wear and tear on the legs, and it just doesn't leave as much time to sort of prepare, to train, to analyze tape, and all that. So it's another uphill battle for SAFC, but I guess in a sense, maybe having lost at Phoenix, it takes a bit of the pressure off. Maybe they don't have this perfect record on the road, and they can just go in there with kind of like the match on Wednesday, not too much to lose.
Yes. RGV has that perfect game to come back. And when I know we talked about this when El Paso was playing Monterrey, and we had this discussion, and he ended up being a positive game, if I'm not mistaken. But if I could choose anybody to play at this point in this championship, in the situation that RGV is playing Monterrey. The only thing that would be better if it was playing at home. But flying to California, Monterrey has only 6 points, right? Six
two
points in eight
wins.
games.
Yes, 2 wins, but they just this past weekend they defeated Las Vegas Lights at home. This game on Saturday is going to be their second game at home. They're hungry to show their home fans what they can do. They come in motivated. RGV, they're coming in demotivated, because of all these bad results. And you mentioned it, Jonathan, when you were talking about San Antonio's game against Monterey Bay, and you mentioned about finishing. Well, what else is RGV not good at? Finishing. And with these defensive mistakes, you're opening the door for Monterey Bay to kind of play a trick on you, and you end up, with just trying to salvage a point or maybe even nothing out of it. So
Yeah.
it's a dangerous game for RGV.
No, you can say whatever you want. I would still choose to play Monterrey at this point than any other team in the table. To be very very honest, Jonathan.
And also, just really quickly, stepping back and taking a look at the bigger picture, we've talked about how El Paso had a rough start to the season, but now has strung a few wins together, has probably turned a corner. Monterey Bay is going to be looking to do the same kind of thing after their rough start to the season. Now that they're going to have more matches at home,
Yeah.
this is their first chance to string 2 wins together and to maybe start going on a run. So it's dangerous in that sense as well.
I don't
That's
know,
that's
but
true.
just the fact that even Warmer Cabrera's kind of said in their last game at home, where he mentioned that against Orange County SC, that this team pretty much gives life to struggling teams. So
I know a lot of teams that like to do that. In my history of soccer, I can name a few. Let's go back to Joe. Joe, playing Pittsburgh, it's usually Pittsburgh has a turf field, a very small turf field, and the minimum size for FIFA. Right? It's a very tough game. If you're able to score in the beginning of the game, you can sit back and hold the game. But the other way around also is true. If you can't sit back, it becomes a very very dangerous game. You know, and we talked every week on how offensive this El Paso team tries to be, how this small field on a turf field can impact this. Can we come back with some points from Pittsburgh?
Well, I mean, with the current situation that I think El Paso has now, like you said, turning the corner, one thing they can start to reestablish, and we can fall back to that philosophy right now at this point of the season, is if they go on the road and just obtain a draw, that might actually it's an okay thing. They don't. I don't think that sense of urgency is there anymore
But can
as
this team
far as.
play that way,
No, I
Joe?
mean, no, I'm not saying they're going to play for the draw. Absolutely not. But if that's what ends up happening at the end of the day, I think it'll be a good result for this team. Now, another thing, more important than the field, once and I think it's something that we should bring to light, that I don't think we've ever talked about. But talking to a lot of the players on El Paso Locomotive, and I wonder if that's the same case for our other Texas teams, and I wonder how many other teams in the USL. But I've talked to several players here that play with the Locomotive that say they downright dislike playing on any turf surface whatsoever. I mean, they are very vocal about it. Obviously, they went to Loudon. That was a tough turf game. They didn't like it. John Hutchinson was very, very verbally upset about that situation. So the situation is going to repeat itself this Saturday in Pittsburgh. But more importantly, with the factor that I find more important to this game, or more interesting to this game, is El Paso is going to be playing a Pittsburgh team that is currently in second place of the USL Championship with a total of 19 points, 6 wins. One of the better teams in the league, obviously in the Eastern Conference. El Paso, out of all of their victories, El Paso's sitting seventh in the Western Conference, y'all. They're sitting in seventh place, last final spot. All of their losses this season are to 4 of those 6 teams that are above them in the table. And they have not played Colorado Springs, and they have not played Phoenix. So as far as playing quality teams and getting results against quality teams, that has yet to happen this season. So traveling all the way to the East Coast, facing a team, turf, it's going to be a very complicated game for El Paso. So once again, that's why I think if a draw ends up happening, I think it'll be a very good result for El Paso this weekend.
All right, very cool. I think we're gonna make Maya happy here. We're 35 minutes into our podcast, and we're about to be done. Yay! 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 We're gonna get some thumbs up from Maya tomorrow on our Slack channel here. Anyways, guys, I think it's, like I said, great to be back. I love this. I love the USL Championship. I think we're in a good track with the team. We're in a good track with our coverage. I can't get tired saying we got the best coverage of soccer in all the state of Texas, and we can only do this if you support us, if you follow us on social media, if you subscribe to the Striker Texas. Um, less than a beer or a coffee in a Starbucks, you can subscribe for the Striker Texas and get the best coverage and guarantee that we are out there delivering that best content and doing the work that we do.
Yeah,
Joe.
and I want to touch up on that. Before we go away today, I want to make reference to a tweet that Chris Bills tweeted out earlier today. Saying that he was flattered that he saw a lot of the Striker Texas work, being retweeted and on all social media and it being discussed, and even on some Reddit channels. I guess people are posting our paid content on the Reddit channels, and I guess that has some sort of flattery to it. But anybody listening, he's absolutely right. I mean, if you're that interested, please subscribe. We won't let you down. We promise we won't let you down with the quality work that everyone at the Striker Texas does.
And that's it. If everybody does a little bit, which is just a subscription every month, $5, a subscription to guarantee that we have this, amazing independent coverage, right? How many times have we had some kind of issues with the front offices that are not used to have this criticism coming from the media because just there has never been a soccer specific media outlet in the state of Texas, and we're here to bring the best for everybody. Be honest, be fair, be credible, be respectful, but being critical and making people accountable. And we can only do this if everybody supports us. Otherwise, we can't do. Anyways, let's go. Otherwise, Maya is gonna get upset with us. Support us on social media. Support us subscribing, and don't forget support local soccer. See you next week, guys.